Uh, okay, okay, it's in my group. Okay, just breakthrough. All right, and share it. All right, but we are live. So good evening, everyone. I am here with Tiffany Harris. This is going to be an amazing, awesome interview. I'm excited to have her here. And let me see. Um, so I'm just going to introduce you, Tiffany, to my viewers, and then we're just going to get this party started. So Tiffany Harris is she's amazing. You're absolutely amazing, good person inside and out. Um, she's newly married recently. She's a wife, mom, coach, mentor, author, speaker. And I just love your energy. I just love your spirit. And I just from the moment I met you, I just thought this is someone that I really want to connect with, because I believe that connection is important, and we should be around people who understand our language and who can relate to what we're doing, um so I just believe in being in like with around like-minded people. And so I have been totally inspired and empowered by you. So I'm just so excited. So I am going to just let you start. I've heard bits and pieces of your story. So if you could just tell the audience a little bit about like some of the obstacles. I know you did experience some domestic violence. So whatever you feel comfortable in sharing, just you have the floor, you can share.
Thank you so much, Pastor Carolyn. Let me just say, first of all, I appreciate the invitation to be on your platform and to speak to your audience. And my feelings and thoughts about you are exactly the same.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. You have this beautiful light that shines from within. Your spirit is absolutely amazing. And let me just first say something to the audience. There's something that's so significant, and it's important to get into rooms and go to places even if you have to go alone, right?
Yep.
And so I went to an event, yes, called Collaboration Over Competition. And while I was I did get a chance to speak, and I was promoting my brand, Be Inspired Apparel brand. And that's where I first came in contact with Pastor Carolyn. And although my sister was there with me, however, when I first decided to go, I was going alone, right? And so it's going to come a time in your life that you're going to have to make a decision whether or not anybody else goes, you are going to go, right? So I never want you all to miss out on any opportunity, any blessing, any connection, any relationship they may need to be formed. And so get in the room, in the right room. I was in the right room when I met.
Room.
Right room, right? You don't have to worry about getting in every room, but the right room. And you will know which room is right for you. And that's how I met Pastor Carolyn. So I'm so excited. So thank you again for being here. And thank you for having me here as well. So like Pastor Carolyn said, I am a newly wife. Shout out to my husband, Andre Harris. And so come July 6th, it will be 6 months that I have been married, and it is truly a blessing. Yes. And I love it, right? So listen, Carolyn, sidebar, everybody. I tell people my favorite conversations nowadays is anytime I get to say, because my husband said, and me and my husband was talking about, anytime I can say my husband, those are my favorite conversations that I like to have. But I truly thank God.
That is beautiful.
Thank you for allowing me to be in a God-ordained marriage that I'm in. I am a mother. I have one biological daughter. I do have my bonus blessings, my bonus daughters and bonus son as well. So I love our happy and beautiful blended family. And I'm right here from Philadelphia. So those of you who are watching do know that. And for those of you who do not know, I'm right here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, born and raised. And so I serve and I wear many different hats. So I'm an award-winning international speaker. I am a serial author. So one of my books that I publish is right behind me, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. It's called From the Struggle to the Stage. And that is my 5 life-saving principles that will shift the trajectory of your life another book that I am an author in, which was recently released on the Jumbotron in Times Square. I was just in New York last week for the promotion of a book that I'm in called Warrior Women, Turning Life Lessons into Legacy, which is this book here. I'm in chapter 8. And so I have my third book. It's another anthology. I am in 2 chapters. It's called From Tragedy to Triumph. And that will be released in August in Chicago. So I'll be flying out to Chicago for a gala for that book release. And I need to say, Pastor Carolyn, you just got some exclusive tea right there, because I've never talked about
That's good. That's good.
Chicago, August, and that book release. So you heard it
I
here
love
first.
it.
On Pastor Carolyn's
Girl,
platform.
you are moving and shaking.
Thank you. In addition to that, the founder of a women's community, which Pastor Carolyn is a part of, WIN, W-I-N, WIN, Women in Power, where our mission statement is women empowering women to soar, scale, and succeed. And the beautiful relationship that Pastor Carolyn and I have is the perfect example of the reasons why I wanted to start WIN, Women in Power. And we have so many other amazing women from across the world in that community as well. And I'm also an entrepreneur. And so I say all that and I share all that because, yes, while those are the hats that I wear, that has not always been the place that I was at, right? And so from the struggle to the stage, and some people may say, oh, well, the struggle, the stage, what are you referring to? And I tell people, I don't mean standing on the stage underneath lights when we're speaking. I don't mean that type of stage. I mean that we can all go through struggling with depression, which was my situation some years ago, right? To a stage in our life and we've been delivered and we have a renewed mind and we're able to think clearly, we're able to focus, we're able to feel good about the choices and decisions that we're making in our life, right? I mean, we can go from struggling, which was my case, with a stage in our life where we're being abused, right? And to fast forward to a stage in our life, which is my case, where I'm now in a happy, healthy, God-ordained marriage that I'm loaded with love, right? So that's what I mean when I say from the struggle to the stage. And so for the first time, when I wrote this book, Warrior Women, and also in the other anthology that's coming up, Tragedy to Triumph, I really, 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 really get deep and transparent about my period in life where I unfortunately suffered abuse, right? And I was in a domestic violence situation. And so I remember not ever talking about it because I was ashamed and I was embarrassed to tell people that somebody was putting their hands on me, that I was getting black eyes. Because Pastor Carolyn, growing up, I told everybody I would never, ever, 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 ever be with somebody who abused me. Right. And so here it was back in 2005, 2006, when I met a wolf in sheep's clothing. Right. And I was like, wow. And I got caught up. And so I said, I would never be with this type of person. And then I ended up being with that type of person. And like I said, because of the embarrassment, because of the shame, I didn't tell anybody what I was going through. And I didn't ask for help. And so ladies, even men too, because you can be victims of abuse as well.
Yes.
Right? For help, get out. You deserve more. You are worth more. You are more valuable, and you do not have to stay in an abusive situation. That's not the plan that God has for you. That's not the relationship or the person that God has for you. And so I met this wolf in sheep's clothing, and initially I couldn't see it. Right? I was so blinded by the physical appearance, the natural man. I was so blinded by the light eyes, the braids, the fur coat, all the material things and the looks. And so I remember when we met that first day, and then it took about a week for us to meet up again to actually hang out. And so I remember when he came over to my car, and as soon as he went to put his hand on my door handle, that same excitement that I had that first day that I met him, I didn't have it that second time that I saw him. Then God was opening up my eyes. Then God was allowing me to see all the trigger signs, right? All the warning signs. And as we all know, and I hope you all know, and if you don't know, I'm going to tell you that warning comes before destruction.
Yes. Yes.
Warning comes before destruction. Take heed to the warning signs. I did not take heed to the warning signs back then. And so what I saw, what God showed me was somebody who was a liar, who was a cheater, who was a manipulator, who was an abuser. So, Pastor Carla, I could see it and I could feel it. But I said, oh, no, it's just me. It's all in my head.
Right.
And I was like, nah, come on, get in. Let's go hang out. Right. And that was the beginning of my life during that time, spiraling out of control. And so back then, I had just graduated from Temple University with my master's degree. However, I wasn't working. And so this guy, he sold drugs, he was doing other things to get money. And so unfortunately, I was foolish and I relied on what he could do for me, not realizing that God was the one who could provide for me and all of my needs. And so I stayed in this relationship, and over time, everything that I saw came to pass. He started to be controlling. He started to be abusive, right? And so back then, I knew that the situation that I was in, it wasn't healthy. I knew that it wasn't toxic, but because here it is, I'm like, I need money. I need things. I need my car fixed. And he was providing for me in that way.
Wow.
And I endured the abuse. I endured the cheating. I endured the lies, right? And so in order to cope, I turned to popping pills. I was drinking syrup. I was smoking weed. I was hanging out and partying all night just because I didn't want to have to argue and deal with everything that was going on that I knew I shouldn't have been a part of. And so I had to speak in North Carolina. Yeah. And I was so happy that a lot of youth were there because
It's good.
said to them, one of the things I said to them, I'm not glorifying smoking weed and popping pills. I'm glorifying a God who met me right where I was at in that low valley and brought me out. Right. And so I have to be very clear when I share this part of my testimony, this part of my life with certain people, especially with the youth and especially with this day and age with things that they're saying. It's cool to smoke weed. They think it's cool to be defiant. They think it's cool to be disobedient. Like, no, I'm not saying no. Let's be very clear. I'm not saying that was okay, but there's a lesson that I wanted them to learn and some takeaways I wanted them to leave with as a result of what I've been through. Don't go down the same path that I went down, right? Don't make the same mistakes and decisions that I made. And so I turned to the popping pills, the drinking syrup, the smoking weed. And then you'll get people that say, oh, well, smoking weed, that's not that bad. And so I don't know how many people know that, smoking weed, it does impair your judgment, right?
Yes, it does.
It is a gateway drug to other drugs. So I started with the weed, then it started with the pills, then it started with the syrup, right? And so because I was addicted now and caught up, no matter what he did, I stayed because my body craved these drugs. And when I say no matter what he did, I mean, there was a time where he even pulled a gun out on me.
Wow.
Right? So I really thank God because I didn't have to be here. All he had to do was pull that trigger and I would not have to be here. He sold drugs from my vehicle. And so we would ride around and he would, hey, let me get this. He would lean over and open up the glove compartment and get the drugs to take it to his clients. Right. And so with that came bad decisions. Like, I'm so thankful that I don't look like what I've been through. Right. So I'm somebody, when he would ride people, I was the lookout person and the getaway driver. So I need people to know, like, when you see Tiffany on these stages, you see Tiffany as the author, you see Tiffany traveling to these different places. This wasn't always Tiffany. And so, and the important thing for me too, is let people know it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter what you've done, right? God still has a purpose for you. God still has a purpose for you. God still wants to do something new in your life, just like he did for me. Like, I didn't start out this way. Oh, please trust and believe. I was defiant. I was disobedient. I lied. I stole. I was accomplice in robberies. I popped pills. I smoked weed, but God, right?
But God.
And people always say, well, how did you get out of it? And so what I tell people is I was raised in church. So shout out to my mother, Jean Gay.
Yes.
She, she raises in the church, and we all know the scripture: train up a child in the way that they should go, and in their own old age they will not depart from it, right? So that was me. She raises in church, and I got to an age where I said, you know what, I don't want to be in church. I want to do my own thing. I want to run the streets and party and hang out and be mischievous and rebellious and things like that. However, that foundation was still there. That seed was already
Yes,
planted,
planted. Yes.
Pastor Carolyn. So I never got away from that. And so I remember, after he pulled the gun out on me, and I had to have a very real conversation with myself. And I asked myself, sometimes y'all got to speak to yourself. I don't know. I speak to myself
Yes.
all the time, Pastor
All the
Carolyn.
time.
Right?
So do I.
I knew it wasn't right. I know I didn't deserve to be getting beat on like that. I know my life, just for me to graduate college and have a master's, and even if you didn't graduate college, I
That's
knew that
right.
my purpose wasn't to ride around with this drug dealer all day, popping pills and just allowing my life to just be in shambles. And so I would cry and I would cry and I would cry because I was caught up, and I was afraid to leave also because I didn't know where my next dime was going to come from. I felt like he was the end all, right? And so I remember one night we had just got finished partying and smoking, popping pills. I dropped him off, and I was riding through the back roads coming from Northeast Philadelphia where he lived. And I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And one of the things that I was always afraid to do back then was to talk to God, because I felt like, because I was disobedient, because I had strayed away from him, I thought that he was done with me and washed his hands with me. He didn't want to hear me, right?
Never that, right?
Exactly, right?
Never that.
Moment, right? And he had to show me exactly that. He had to show me never that. And so that was my initial thought. But then I had to say to myself, Tiffany, if you don't get out of this situation, you're going to die. And the only person that can help you was God. So it had to have been like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And what's the song? Late in the midnight hour, God's going to turn it around.
Yes, turn it around. Yes.
I start crying. And people always say, well, pray. How do you pray? Like, I don't know what to say. I'm going to tell you exactly what I said. It's a simple conversation. You say whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind. And literally all I said was, God, I need your help.
I need your help.
I need your help. That's all I said. I said, I messed up. I know I'm high. I was high as a cat. I'm high right now, but only you can get me out of this.
That's right.
I want to die. I want to live. I need you to do this for me. Right? Despite thinking that he didn't want to hear from me, because that was in the back of my mind. Like, all right, I'm going to say it anyway, but he don't want to hear from me. But let me just go ahead. Prayer has been my foundation. I was raised in the church. Pastor Carolyn, as soon as I said that simple, I need your help. I don't want to die. I turned on the radio station to 103.9 when it was a gospel station. And the first song that came on was God Still Hears a Sinner's Prayer by Dietrich Hatton.
Yes.
I said, what? Late in the midnight
hour. God's going to turn it around.
Right. I said, wow. And so, like you said, never that. And that for me in that moment was confirmation. Like, no, I'm right here. Although you left me, I've never left you.
That's right.
No, I'm here. I'm with you in these back roads. I'm with you in this black 2004 Focus. I'm with you, right? I'm bottling up every tears. All I've been waiting for is for you to come back and acknowledge me, right? And tell me what you need. Right? I already knew you messed up. I already knew you was going to mess up before you messed up.
Before you messed up. He knew you was going to mess up.
So what you worried about, right? And so, Pastor Carolyn, when I did that, I felt like my mindset literally shifted, right? So I went from a mindset where, okay, I'm just going to accept this. I'm going to go with the flow, to a mindset of a no weapon form that gets me prosper mindset. I had a mindset of a greater is he that is in me than he with us in the world mindset. My mindset shifted to there's nothing too hard for, like my mindset had to shift. Right. So once my mindset shift, the way that I felt began to shift, that my actions began to shift. And that's when I started to ask for help. That's when I called my mom and let her know what I was going through. Right. Okay. And so from there, I went and I filed for a protection from abuse order. Wow. And so once you get that protection from abuse order, you have to serve the individuals. So I had a friend back then who was a police officer, and I would try to get him to serve the man these papers. But every time we tried to serve him, he wasn't home. So I went back to what I knew, prayer. And this conference that I just did, the theme was prayer changes things. And my subject was, yes, prayer changes things, and prayer changes everything.
Everything. Ooh, that's so
Everything.
good.
Prayer
That's so
changes
good.
everything, right? There's power in prayer. So I went back to praying. I said, well, God, all right, you met me in the midnight hours. You met me in my focus in that back road. Now you then gave me the strength and the courage to get this protection order. But now what? I can't serve him the papers. So then I heard God say, have him come to you. I said, oh, okay, I'm gonna have him come to me. Right. And so my grandmother, she lived down North Philly near 11th and Erie. And I had him come to me, and it was something that he left in my car. It was a pair of sneakers, like one of his favorite pair of sneakers. And I said, hey, you left your sneakers, come and get your sneakers or whatever. And he came over to get them. So while he came to get the sneakers, my sister, Maxine Gay, hey, Max, she said, oh, yeah, and by the way, this is for you. I need to give you these. And he said, well, what's this? She said, well, you've been served with protection from abuse papers, and you're going to have to go to court. He looked at the papers, he laughed, and he threw them on the table. Oh, Pastor Carolyn, my feelings was hurt. I was so crushed. And he walked out the door. And I went back to that same 2004 focus right in front of my grandmother's house. And I sat there and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I said, but God, you told me to have him come to me. Like, I'm pretty sure I heard your voice when you instructed me on what to do as you're making a way for my escape. Right. So I did what you told me to do, but he didn't take it. So he still is not served. And so a couple weeks later, it was time for court. And so I'm riding down the road, Lycombe Pike in Mount Airy in Philly, and there was a motorcycle in front of me, and the license plate said PSLM 91. And immediately it registered in my mind, Psalms 91.
Wow.
I had no idea how powerful Psalms 91 was.
Oh, honey, yes.
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 And so when I got down to the courthouse, my stomach was in knots. I felt like I was going to vomit. And then it's like the Holy Spirit said, wait a minute. Remember what was on the back of that license? Psalms 91. I was like, oh, okay. And I can't remember if I had the Bible app on my phone or if I actually had my pocket Bible, one or the other, but I opened it or I went on my phone and I began to read the entire Psalms 91. There was so much peace and tranquility that literally came upon me. And I felt like I already won. I felt like it was nothing else to worry about while I was still waiting to be called. And so then I was called. I went to the judge's chambers and he says, well, where's so-and-so? And I said, well, unfortunately, I wasn't able to serve him the papers. He came to my grandmother's house, but he looked at the papers and he didn't take them. He said, wait a minute, what? You mean to tell me he looked at them but didn't take them? I said, he did. So he said to the clerk, he said, get his phone number from her and get him on the phone right now. Pastor Carolyn, they looked at me and said, oh, he's never done that before. And see, listen, audience, I don't know about you.
Wow.
Unimaginable, the unthinkable, things that we
never. That's right.
Right. And so, because she literally said to me, well, he's never done this before. So they called him on the phone and he tried to be slick with the judge. And he said, so I understand that you saw these papers, but you didn't take them. And he said, yeah, I seen it, but I didn't take them. So I wasn't served. He said, well, actually you were. Right. And he said, you got 30 minutes to get down here and dispute this. She told me you came to her. So if she can prove, and if she has witnesses that you were there, she is going to get this protection order. I said, and it all came full circle. That's why God told me to have him come to me, because my witnesses that day that were there, it was it was my grandmother, it was my cousin, it was my uncle, it was the whole block on 11th Street down in Philly. I had a whole gang of witnesses. I was like, oh my oh my goodness. So he never showed up. Of course, he couldn't dispute it. Of course, I had witnesses. So in the end, the protection order from abuse was in place. And from that day, I had never seen him again. I have never.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's good.
I have never been in an abusive relationship again. And so what I people to know is don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, I dealt with slash tires, sugar in my gas tank.
Mm,
He would call my phone and say, "You're not dead yet." And so I knew that I needed to get out. And the only person that was going to rescue me and get me out was God. That's
was
it.
God. That's the
That's
truth.
it. You
That's
know,
the truth.
and I speak on so many different platforms or just with speaking to people in general, and they'll say to me, "Well, why you always got to talk about God? Why you always got to put God in it?" It's
Girl,
like,
yes.
God is the reason for
He's
everything,
the reason for
right?
everything. He's
So
our
I would
source and
never,
resource for everything.
come
Yes.
on, I would never let you know anything. Like, why would I do that?
But I love that. That's another thing I love about you because you have no issue, no problem with speaking kingdom. And I want to acknowledge that because so many times I am in different um environments where I know people, are kingdom, but they shrink back because they don't want to offend anybody, or they don't want somebody told me I don't want to be so churchy. And it's not even about being churchy, it's about being your authentic you that God called you to be. And
Exactly.
if we serve him and we represent him, we need to rep him wherever we go. That's the bottom line.
Exactly. Rep him wherever we go. I love that.
Yes. Yep.
Exactly. That's the bottom line.
I
And that's
love it.
yeah. And so that's what he did for me. And
Wow.
I've been able to break through and break out and do some different
Mm.
things and go back and serve and help other people heal and be saved, through sharing what he's done for me.
Yes. Because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Something you said, something you posted, and it's funny because when I read, I was like, I say that a lot. I say that a lot. So I'm glad we're on the same vibe. But you said, and I just want to say that you posted that sometimes the breakdown is necessary for the breakthrough.
Thank you,
And that
God.
is so very true. And I was listening to so much of what you were saying. We kind of, you know, had similar, I went through also domestic violence. And yes, I had that defining moment when he literally, we had the worst fight we ever had, and he choked me out. And to this day, I can't tell you how long I was out, but when I came to, he was sitting in the corner crying, telling his dad that he thought he killed me. So I
Mm,
remember thinking he thinks I'm dead.
mm,
And so I knew, but even in that, like you said, I grew up in church, and so I always knew that I had value. I always knew my worth, and I remember I used to tell him all the time, this is it's not going to always be this way. I know I'm better than this. Like there was something inside of me that always knew I deserved better, and I think you know um that's so important to know that even though you might even find yourself in that situation where you are being abused, and we know that abuse is more than just physical too, because some people are being abused and they don't realize they're abused because it's just emotional abuse, or could be financial abuse. It's so many different levels of abuse, but sometimes we don't even know we're being abused. But when we learn who we are and whose we are, know our worth. uh, my ministry is primarily serving women who are starting over after trauma, after abuse, after loss, after divorce, and I teach them how to change their mindset and begin to live your best and blessed life now. So you're not stuck in the past, because even sometimes after we leave the abuser, we continue to abuse ourselves in
true.
so many different ways. And so I don't know if you experienced that, but it's just so much to it's a lot to overcome that. uh Being in an abusive relationship and having somebody tear you down, and having somebody telling you you're not enough or whatever. And then and sometimes it's hard to find yourself. And so I just love the fact that you relied on God, because that's real. That is real. God is real, and God is. The Bible says He's our very present help in times of trouble. So when we have trouble, doesn't matter what the trouble is, we can look to Him, because He is our help. Because I know He helped me out of that situation. He gave me full instructions when I realized, girl, now it's time for you. You need to go now. And Holy Spirit literally gave me instructions on how to, because I wasn't telling people, like a lot of times we don't always tell people, because my family didn't know. But Lord is like, yes, now it's time for you to tell somebody. You need to tell somebody what's going on and come up with a safe escape plan so that you can leave this person. Because the reason why I stayed as long as I did, because he always had this thing where you can go anytime you want, but you can't take my son. Well, obviously I'm not going anywhere to leave my son.
Right.
So but I just want to encourage women, and like you said, men too, because I do actually serve men that have been abused too as well. No one deserves to be hit or talked down to, or um, just treat, spit on, strangled, hit, like all of that stuff. Know your value, know your worth. You're so much better than that. God created us fearfully and wonderfully, and he did not create us. He did not create his sons, and he did not create his daughters to be battered and abused. And another thing you said, one of the reasons why you were saying you stayed is because you relied on his money. And something else I always tell women is a man is not a financial plan.
That's right.
A man is not a financial plan, honey. You have to have your own stuff. That's
Mhm.
something that my mother always taught me.
Yep.
But a lot of women stay within those abusive relationships for the money, because they don't see their way out. They don't see how they're going to survive on their own. And that's something that a lot of times the abuser will use. Well, you can't do anything without me. You need me, you know.
Right.
So I mean, could you speak to that? How when you realize, yes, I'm not only set free, but because I see you are a mover and a shaker, and you know how to get that bag. Okay, you know how to get that bag. And one of the things I do wealth builder sessions, because I want to teach women how. Yes, you and I'm remarried too, so I have a good husband. Like we're happily married. It's a good thing. But even in that, I've learned that I need to always, and it's not that I can't depend on him. It's not that he can't provide or whatever, but you still should have. Even if I always said, even if I was married to a billionaire, I still would have answer the call, because God has given all of us purpose. He has given all of us gifts, all of us talents. And so we should always operate in those gifts and talents and create multiple income streams.
Mhm.
Okay. So that way, when one thing is not working, something else will. But that whole thing, I just love to tell women a man is never a financial plan. So if that's your financial plan, you need to find another one.
And I agree. I second that. I concur. Yes, 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 yes. And and I'm glad you mentioned how it's not just physical abuse, it's emotional abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse, and it's all still abuse, and never let
Yes,
any type of abuse be less significant than the others, all
that's
traumatic
true.
and traumatizing.
Hmm.
And so I was the same with the emotional and mental abuse, because one of the things he also told me is that no one would ever want me. He would say,
Right.
look at you, the lips are too big and your body isn't shaped this way, and men don't like
Mm.
shaped like you.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I believed him. I internalized that. And I
Hmm.
was like, well, I guess this is as good as it's going to get. I guess nobody
Wow.
else will. I felt like, oh, he's so fine. I can never get anybody else better, and looks is not everything. And I told the young
Not
people,
at all.
glitters is not gold. Everything that you think is good for you is not. Okay. No, absolutely not. And so unfortunately I internalized that. And then after, I was able to end it, I still battled somewhat with that low self-esteem and trying to find like who was Tiffany? What does Tiffany,
Right.
what makes Tiffany great and incredible? And I had to get to that place where I knew that I was beautifully and wonderfully and fearfully.
Yes.
And so, and I thank God that I got to that place. And like you talked about having your own money. And my mom used to always say that growing up. And my
My
dad,
mom did too.
he did she worked, but he didn't want her to. And she has 8 children. And so he wanted her to just stay home. He wanted to take care of her. But she's like, no, I mean, I can still take your money, but I'm still gonna make my own money too.
Mhm.
That's a big step. And so she would always say that. But unfortunately, I didn't take heed, and I felt like I wasn't working. Let me just get his money. And it
Right.
was fast money, right? And so
Yeah.
you're afraid to put
Well,
in
we
the
know about fast money, right?
work. And I didn't want to put in the work. I didn't want to work. I was like, oh, this fast
Right.
money, I can just sit back. But in retrospect, it wasn't worth my peace of mind. It wasn't worth
Mm.
and everything that came along with that. And so after I got the protection from abuse order, it was like God was like, I'm going to show you that I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to show you
Yes. Mm.
never needed to rely on him, because as soon as I was out of that, it had to been days later. And my aunt Marie, God rest her soul, and she called me. She had like this raspy voice. She said, "Hey, Tiff, what you doing, girl? There's Aunt Marie." Like, "Hey, Aunt Marie." She said, "Yeah, your mom told me you need a job. You're looking for work. Well, I know such and such. They're hiring down at her job for a drug and alcohol counselor."
Isn't it? See that full circle. But you
That's
see how God, that's that pain to purpose story. God
Mhm.
will use that very thing that was painful, and he will turn that into into your purpose. I call it a pain to purpose story. So look
Yeah.
at that. Look at God,
And not
right?
only did I get the job on the spot, 3 months later, they promoted me to the supervisor of the evening
Mm,
shift of the drug. And so by then I was
wow.
done with doing all that other stuff. And they promoted me to the supervisor for the drug and alcohol program, brought it back full circle. And so one of
Wow.
the things I tell people too is like to embrace your struggle. No, it's not good. Yes, it's painful, but in that struggle, it's also your secret sauce to you working in your purpose.
Mm,
I tell people all
yes.
the time, I embrace the struggle. That has been my secret sauce to me walking in my purpose. Textbook and theory and all that, that's great, but I've lived this, I've walked this, I've come out of this. Right. So let me reach back and help you as well. And God had to show that to me. You put me in these different places and meeting these different women and having these different platforms, because Tiffany is bigger than you.
So much bigger than you. It's so like I know when I got that revelation that it was so much bigger than me, because for so long I was telling bits and pieces of my story, and God is just like I just felt God was like there, like this with his arm crossed, like no, you just need to tell your whole story. And so my first book, Tears in a Bottle, because I think you mentioned something just well, I don't know if you realized it while you were talking. You said something about tears, like the tears in a bottle, but that's the name of my first book. And I would always, whenever I would minister to women, they would always say, you need to write a book. And I would say, I'm going to write a book one day, but of course I would never write the book. And then one day God was just like, you need to tell your whole story. And so he knows his daughter. I always say God knows us better than anybody else, even better than we know ourselves. He knew me well enough to know that the only way I was going to put my story out there for real is if I put it in writing. He knew me, because otherwise I would still be doing the same thing. But then that's when I understood like pain the purpose. Like, yeah,
Mm,
you went through all that stuff, and that's why I try to encourage women. Yeah, you might be going through some stuff right now. Like we went to a women's shelter on Saturday to just serve women, and I just like to say, listen, I don't care whether you're in a women's shelter today, even if you're drug addicted today. Like, because you even said it, you were high and you were praying.
yep.
Okay,
Yep.
you were high and you were praying. Listen, God can still use you.
Yes, you can.
God is bigger than any drug. Listen, there's no drug bigger than the Most High. Ain't no high bigger than the Most High. So God will use anything, and He can use anything. And so I'm just so excited that you said yes to the call, because I see how you are touching so many lives. And this is just the beginning. God has so much in store for you. Girl, this is just the beginning. I promise you. He's going to use you as long as we're open to allowing God to use us. He will use us, and we all have a purpose, and God has a plan for each and every one of us. And even though somebody might be watching right now and say, but you don't even understand what I'm going through right now, you don't even understand how I feel right now. Listen, God understands, and He
Mhm.
sees, and He
That's it.
knows. And if you will get up, because sometimes we just have to do it anyway. Just
Yep.
force yourself to get up, pray, begin to pray. And like you said, you only need a few words to talk to God. That's what prayer is. It's just talking to God, communicating with God, and just talk to Him and tell Him, just surrender. Say, I'm tired,
That's it.
tired of living like this, you know?
And I want to say, Pastor Callan, too, you were on point, right? And just surrender to him and pray in the midst of whatever it is you're going through, and
Yes.
anywhere. Some people think that, oh,
Mm,
well, I'm not in church. I don't have a church
right.
home. I don't have a path. You can pray anywhere. Well, I was in my 2004 Focus when
There you
God,
go.
right in
Wow.
the 2000, that same 2004 Focus that I was getting high in, that same
Mm,
2004 Focus where we were selling drugs out of my car, that
wow.
same 2004 Focus that I drove off after he robbed somebody and I was a
Mm,
getaway driver, that same place he
wow.
came, met me right there. And so
Mm,
when I tell people, literally that 2004 Focus became my sanctuary,
wow.
right? That became my secret place, that same place. So please, Audie, don't be fooled. Don't think that because you can't get into the four walls of the church.
That's right.
I love that you go into the shelters. Like those are the people I want to reach. And I'm not saying anything about church, but I want to meet those
Right.
struggling who need help and they're confused and they're looking for answers. You know,
Answers.
a lot of people who think they're all polished and got it all together. And no,
Yeah.
I want to go back and bring those people up, right? Who are hurting and suffering, who want to surrender, but don't really know how to surrender.
And
I'm
that's the thing, because I know, like I said, I grew up in church. So my entire life I've been in church, and I love church. Listen, we are the church. I always tell people, first of all, we are the church. So I do not bash the church because I am the church. Okay. You don't have to be in a church building to be the church. We are the church. But the one thing I learned and I saw a lot of was religion, and how people, women especially, were just broken and just bleeding all over the place. Some of them were home being abused by their husband that might have been a deacon or whatever. Like, this is all this stuff. And I'm just saying, but I just felt like, even though I know now, I know of a lot of churches now that are equipped, but for a long time, a lot of churches weren't equipped to deal with somebody that was being battered and abused by their husband, or sexually abused by a child being sexually abused by their uncle or whatever. And so I've always been that one that I want to be there. I want to help you. I want to talk to you. I want to help you understand that life don't have to always be like this. And so God literally told me, I need you to come out of these walls, because I was the usher, I was the children's church teacher, you name it, I did it in the walls. God, like, it's time for you to come out, because I need you to reach those people there are people who may never step in these doors, right? And there's a lot of people that used to be in, but now they vowed to never come back. So who's contending to them? Because if we're only ministering to the people in the walls of the church, well, who's going to minister to the other people? We are called to literally go into all the world. And that's what God told me. I need you to go into all the world. I'm calling you to all the world. So, and I love it because I meet so many people, and I don't get caught up in, somebody said to me, why, they didn't call you pastor. I don't get caught up in titles and things like that, because some people, a lot of people that I serve, they could care less what your title is. They're not caring about your title. They ain't gonna care about any of that. If you're in a fire and you're burning up, you're not gonna care who comes in there to save you.
Right.
Right. You're just not. So that's my passion. I just want to serve those who are overlooked. You know what I mean? Overlooked, and might feel like um inferior, because sometimes in church we seem to be, like you said, so polished and everything. And a lot of people just feel like, I don't fit. But you do fit. But the thing is, you fit, but you don't have to fit, because we're all authentic. God created all of us uniquely. And so we don't have to look like anybody else. We don't have to show up like anybody else. And it took me a long time to figure out that I just did not have to do the status quo. I can be everything that God called me to be and serve. But that's my passion. I just want to reach those who may never show up. They may never show up to the church, but yet they're still hurting. They still need somebody to reach out to them and say, God does love you. He does love you. Even though you might feel like nobody loves you now, God loves you. And that's what I want to say to anybody that's watching, whatever situation you may be in right now. God loves you. God, he loves you. He doesn't stop loving us because we make bad choices. He doesn't. He doesn't. He doesn't stop loving us because we're feeling bad about ourselves or we're having a bad day. He doesn't. He still loves us. So I so appreciate that. I love that. Um, I just love that you have such a passion for women and pouring back. And your story is so important. Like you said, young people need to hear it. Yes. Because they just, they need it. And I like that you're real, you're authentic, you're not trying to be somebody that you're not. And that is what they're looking for. Because young people will pick up on you, right? If you're coming to them faking it, they're not about the faking it until you make it. Like, you just need to show up and be yourself.
It was so many young people when I had to speak in North Carolina a couple of days ago. I just got back last night, And I asked some of the young people, I said, so what were some of your takeaways? Like, what was the lesson that you learned from what I said? And what did you enjoy about the whole, service? And the things that they said to me, their feedback, like they were paying attention.
Mhm.
And one of them actually said, you were interesting. The way that you told your story was
Mhm.
like it kept me captivated. Like I was
Right.
I was locked in. And so their
Mm.
feedback let me know they were paying attention.
That's
They
good.
understand, the message that I was trying to get for them to receive. It's like, wow. Wow. The young
That's
adults
so
over there,
good.
I was like, oh my goodness. And so,
That's
yeah.
good because and they saw you held their interest because you were being real. You didn't sugarcoat it. You
Right.
didn't kind of dance around it.
Mm.
No, yeah, I was in that car. I was in the getaway car. That's what they need to hear, our real story. Because guess what? I don't care how long you've been saved, whoever is watching, myself included, you didn't always do right.
Right.
Okay. We didn't, come on now. You did not always do the right thing. Okay. So we can't pretend like, see, I'm a bit older than you. So the way I grew up in church, everything had to always look good, whether it was good or not. It just had to look good. It didn't matter what was going on behind the scenes for real, as long as it looked good. Right?
Right.
No, we need to be real. We need to be authentic because our children are dying.
Yep.
It's just we have to be real. We have to be authentic and just be ourselves. Just show up as you. And that's another thing I totally love about you. Just show up as Tiffany. You're not trying to look like anybody else.
Right. I'm not trying to bring this imposter syndrome, this facade. That's
No.
one of the things when I had to go to North Carolina and it was part of a prayer conference at a church. And so on the flyer, I was among apostles and pastors. And so I said to the guy, like, well, how am I supposed to come? And it was just that, just all he made it so plain, Pastor Kelly. He said,
Yes.
go and tell him what I've done for you. Just
That's
go
right.
tell
That's
just
so
go talk
simple.
to him and tell him what I've done for you.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's what I did.
And it sounds so simple, but that's all God wants. He just wants us to be authentic and just tell. That's actually evangelism. We used to say evangelism is telling one beggar, how does it go? Telling one beggar how you got food. I messed it up. But anyway, the bottom line is telling somebody how you overcame the things you overcame. Right.
Mhm.
So you whatever you went through, yeah, you went through that, but now God brought you to it and he brought you to the other side so that you can share your testimony and share your story. And each time you share your story, I promise you, people are going to be blessed and stuff is going to be breaking off of them. People are going to be delivered and set free simply by you telling your story. When God gave me that revelation, I was just like, but my story, nobody really want to hear all that. No, and that's what the enemy kept telling me. Nobody want to hear all that. It's depressing. Nobody want to hear all that. Yes, they do. Because somebody who's going through it, they want to hear that. They need to hear it. They need to hear that, wow, there's hope on the other side. Like she actually made it through that.
Yep, you're
So yeah.
absolutely right. Yep. And then, and then sometimes it's for somebody else, like, okay, I know so and so, and my daughter was going through this, or my son,
Mhm.
and I need to
Yep.
connect them with you. Yep.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Yeah. So I love it. Well, keep doing what you're doing. I know you talked about when, but definitely tell everyone how to order your book. And by the way, I need to order your book. I want your book to struggle to the stage. So let everybody know how to order your book. And then I just want to leave with you giving some words of wisdom, whatever you want to share, um,
Yeah.
before we log off.
Absolutely. So first, let me just thank you again for the opportunity and the invitation to be on your platform. I do not take this lightly. Like I said earlier, God has let me know that this is bigger than me. And so anytime I get an opportunity to serve in this capacity and just share my story or leave some wisdom, share some information or resources, just speak to people, I am truly honored and grateful. So thank you so much
Yes.
again.
Oh, you're very
And
welcome.
thank you. And so, yes, you all can purchase my books, From the Struggle to the Stage, Win Women in Power, From Tragedy to Triumph, which is coming out in August. I'll be heading to Chicago. You can send me a direct message. Yes, thank you. You can send me a direct message on Facebook. My name is Tiffany Harris, On Instagram, my name is Mindset Shift with Tiff, or you can go directly to my website and order From the Struggle to the Stage or Warrior Women, and that is tiffanyharris.net. And then soon I will be adding Tragedy to Triumph to my website as well. So if you're interested in that book, you have to message me directly. But follow me on social media, go to my website for more information about my books and the services that I offer. And so one of the last things I want to leave with you is it's two things, right? It's two things. And so sometimes when we're in a situation, it's hard for us to see ourselves out of it. So I just want to encourage you and just let you know that your current situation is not your final destination, right? So shift your mindset and understand that where you have started is not where you're going to end, right? You may feel like you started with little, but you're going to end with much more peace, much more happiness, much more joy, right? Much more faith, right? And so your current situation does not have to be your final destination. And then the last thing, because one of the things when I was going through my depression and anxiety, the foreclosure, the lack, and even with the abuse, I felt like I wanted to give up. And not that I wanted to give up and take my life away, but I wanted to give up with trying to ask for help. I wanted to give up with even trying to go to God and say, I need help. I just wanted to give up in a sense where whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be in that sense. So what I want to say to you all is when you feel like giving up, pick yourself up physically, dust yourself off emotionally, refill yourself spiritually, and start mentally. And that's what I got.
Can you repeat that again?
I sure can. I sure can. And so when you feel like giving up, pick yourself up physically, dust yourself off emotionally, refill yourself spiritually, and start over mentally.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. This is Tiffany Harris, everybody. I'm sorry I did not look at the comments, but I thank all of you for joining. Olive, Evangelist Virginia, Valentine, Shelly, Abram, all of you who have joined the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for Tiffany for just pouring into women. And God has some amazing plans and purposes for you. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard what God is about to do. And Tiffany Harris's life, okay? I'm telling you, I see it. Like I see it. So I want to just tell you, I'm so godly proud of you.
Listen, Pastor Karen, I know we wrapping up. You about to have me jump up out of my seat here in my office. I'm gonna tell you, I've been in North Carolina for the past 4 days at this prayer conference, and you have just confirmed exactly what you just said. I've heard 3 nights of the 4 nights that I was at this conference.
Yes, yes. There's a work to do, and there's so much need. It's so necessary. It's so necessary. And so I thank you for answering the call.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Few are, listen, many are called, but few are chosen. God has chosen you for such a time as this. Absolutely. So know it. So thank you again, Tiffany, for joining. And thank you, everybody, for listening. If you just popped on, you can check out the replay. I'm just so excited. I can't wait to sit back and like watch it and just chill and watch it. Me and hubby will sit and watch it. But I thank you so much. God bless you. May heaven smile upon you. Everybody have a good night, and I will see you soon.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
I don't even think I introduced myself. I am so, in case I didn't in the beginning, I am Pastor Carolyn, pastor and purpose pusher of Tears of Breakthrough Ministries and conference, and the founder and the owner of Queen of Purpose Academy and Lounge, and the founder of the Breakthrough app. So don't forget to come over to my Breakthrough app, and you listen. That's something else. God, don't even get me started. God is just always doing something. That's all I have to say. But God bless you. Have a good night.
Everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.